Ron? Where are you? Where is Ron right now? You done messed up, Ron!
Hey everyone, Ron here. And I'm going to bring you a story I wouldn't normally discuss. I don't normally do videos when Scientologists die or take their own lives. And but this is something I found out about back in October. And it involves an OTA Scientologist named Whitney Mills, who was a Scientologist. She was a professional realtor. She was a Scientologist that lived here in Clearwater, Florida, where I lived. And I found out that she had been in a situation where Scientology had put her under watch. Means she was being, guarded, might be the wrong word. She was being watched, like for her own safety. I guess you could call it a suicide watch, but it's not, just on watch. And that she killed herself, although it didn't have details. And I let the Tampa Bay Times know, and they were looking into the details. But, suicides, the Tampa Bay Times has a particular bar that needs to be cleared, whether a suicide is newsworthy. Someone just taking their own life is not necessarily newsworthy. And just the fact that someone's a Scientologist and they take their own life also doesn't necessarily make it newsworthy. So, for those reasons, this story did not get published about in the Tampa Bay Times, and I didn't do a video about it. But Tony Ortega did publish a story about it today at the Underground Bunker. And since the information is out there, I think it's important for Scientologists to know what occurred with this person. Because at some point, the Scientologists have to start asking themselves, what in the hell are we doing? Like, what is going on? How does something like this happen to someone who's OT8? She tested to OT8 like 3 years ago. She was only 40 years old when she took her own life back in May of this year. And she had attested to OT8 about 3 years prior in 2019, I believe. And, there's this weird contradiction in Scientology where L. Ron Hubbard, Scientologists, look down on the field of mental health. They see it as being a fraud, as being destructive, as being incapable of helping anybody, a la Tom Cruise on Matt Lauer. And yet, Scientologists will actually refuse to help people who are having, who are exhibiting visible evidence of mental instability. Like, if you have any history of mental instability, you're not even allowed on the Flagland base in Clearwater, Florida. Well, if Scientology really had the tools to fix such things, you wouldn't have rules like that. And, the only thing Scientology will do for someone who's having some sort of a mental breakdown is essentially isolate them, give them as much rest and sleep and food and vitamins as possible, but restrict them, limit their interaction with other human beings, essentially put them into isolation until they snap out of it. Well, that works until it doesn't. I mean, if you want to argue that it works. I mean, there are instances where it works, meaning the person does snap out of it, just as a function of time healing some things. Anyway, let me just get right into the reporting on this thing. Here's how it was reported at the Underground Bunker today. Tragic. Clearwater OT8 Scientologist 40 set fire to herself before shooting herself dead. Wonderful. After we reported on the death of Kirstie Alley, blah, blah, blah. This reader told us this was not only a Scientologist, but that Scientology had been involved in some way in her death. Well, Scientology didn't kill her. Scientologist did not shoot her, but I do believe that she was under watch to some degree or another in her own apartment, not like on a Scientology property. We began looking into this matter, making some calls, and learned that the Clearwater Police Department had investigated this woman's death. Yesterday, the department sent us a report of that investigation. Whitney Mills was 40 when she shot herself on May 12th and then died days later at Morton Plant Hospital. We want to warn you that the details are very disturbing and they do bring up questions about her involvement in Scientology. Mills was not only a deeply involved Scientologist, she was a real estate agent in Clearwater, and you can still find her agent pages online as well as photos such as the one you see above. In 2019, Mills reached the highest point on Scientology's bridge to total freedom when she completed OT8 on Scientology's cruise ship, the Freewinds. There you go. A bunch of nonsense. In 2022, Whitney Mills was facing some serious health issues of her own, according to people who knew her and were interviewed by the Clearwater Police Department. One woman who had recently gotten to know Whitney told police that she had been diagnosed with Lyme disease, as well as a mass on one of her ovaries, which she was refusing to remove. It's strange to me how many Scientologists get diagnosed with Lyme disease. I know many, many Scientologists who've been diagnosed with this. And yet outside of Scientology, I think I know like one person. And I think sometimes it might be a catch-all diagnosis for something seems to be wrong with you, and none of the tests are giving any clue as to what it could be. And so they call it Lyme disease. I don't know. Maybe you guys who have a lot more experience with Lyme disease and the problems with diagnosing it and whatnot, let me know in the comments down below. A family member said Whitney had been diagnosed with depression along with Lyme disease. Now that makes me wonder, how would she have been diagnosed with depression if she hadn't seen a mental health professional who could make such a diagnosis? That's a little interesting. And there were at least 3 women who said they were caretakers for Whitney, helping with her shopping and cooking as she dealt with her health issues. See, now this belies something deeper. Scientologists don't have caretakers. Public Scientologists don't have caretakers. It's a funny thing in Scientology. It's actually very hard to find Scientologists willing to help each other in normal life outside of Scientology affairs. Like it is really quite very strange. Scientologists, what's good for Scientology is good for the world. But if you're wasting time just helping Scientologists with non-Scientology related matters, that's time you could be spending helping Scientology. Scientologists are not very helpful to each other. So it's not like you could call someone up and be like, hey, I'm not feeling well. Could you come over and give me, a Scientology assist or whatever? It's actually quite hard to find someone to agree to do that. So the fact that she had several caretakers indicates to me Scientology was actually involved in whatever was going on there. And they just made sure that it wasn't done at any Scientology properties. They just made sure that it was done at her apartment. They made sure it was done in a way that it could not be directly tied to Scientology. That's what this implies to me. So there were at least 3 women who said they were caretakers for Whitney, helping her with her shopping and cooking as she dealt with her health issues. One of the caretakers told police that Whitney was supposed to have surgery in a couple weeks to determine what the mass was, but it was looking like she has cancer, but it was still unconfirmed. On the afternoon of May 12th, one of the caretakers said that Whitney had gone to see a friend. How do you have caretakers and you're making trips to your friends' places? That doesn't make sense. Later that evening, her brother and her mother asked Whitney if she wanted to go to a restaurant with them, but she said she wasn't feeling well. She also turned down an offer to bring her food from the restaurant. Later in the evening, Mills wasn't answering her phone. A welfare check was requested from police. How do you request a welfare check after a couple hours of not hearing from someone? That tells you they absolutely had Whitney on some kind of a controlled regimen where she was essentially under watch, which, by the way, is how it was reported to me back in October, that she was their Scientologists were on a rotating schedule of watching her, which then begs the question, how in the hell was she allowed to go visit a friend, quote unquote? Maybe that's just a bullshit part of the story. Maybe that's not what happened. Because you don't ask the police to do a welfare check after not hearing from someone for 2 hours. And it also, how did the police even agree to do that welfare check? Usually somebody has to be missing for like over 24 hours before the police can even be bothered. Like someone's not even considered missing until they're missing for like 24 or 48 hours. So how in the world did they get the police to do a welfare check after not hearing from somebody for 2 or 3 hours? So a welfare check was requested from police, but a female officer had not been able to get inside the apartment. The brother then arrived, obtained some tools from a neighbor, damaged the electronic lock on the door to get inside. He then found his sister with a gunshot wound to her head. She was still breathing. Other officers who responded to the scene reported a burning smell and seeing burnt hair around the apartment. It became clear that Whitney had initially set herself on fire before shooting herself. Jesus fucking Christ. After being taken to Morton Plant Hospital, she died about a day and a half later. God, it always blows my mind how long people can live with gunshot wounds to the head. It's amazing. Okay, following up on the investigation, a Clearwater detective named Selena Hippolyte contacted family members trying to find Whitney's phone. Oh, go figure. Her phone was missing. That's another reason I think if someone's under watch, by the way, if someone's being watched, they don't have their phone on them. Someone had her phone. This is very interesting. That means they couldn't find Whitney's phone in her apartment. Someone had her phone. Okay. It turned out Whitney's mother had it. Yeah, Whitney's mother was in possession of Whitney's phone. By the way, when I was informed of this back in October, I was told that the crime scene was, well, crime scene, I don't know. You know, I'm not saying she was killed, but was completely sanitized by Scientology and Scientologists before the police were called. That is how it was reported to me. Okay, so did her mother have the phone before Whitney killed herself, or did the mother go to the crime scene? I'm calling it a crime scene. Is suicide a crime? I guess it is. And take her phone. I guess we won't know. The mother agreed to meet the detectives and give the phone to the detective. According to Detective Hippolyte, Whitney's mother then told her something odd. The mother said she had looked through the phone, and Whitney advised she was going to ask the DFP for an assist Whitney advised she was going to ask the DFP for an assist reference suicide. So, okay, this was, the detective has misreported what was said because the detective didn't understand what was said. Anyway, this is going to play out in the reporting here, and then I'll explain as necessary. The DFP means Director of Processing. The Director of Processing in a Scientology organization is the person responsible for managing the department that delivers professional auditing to paying Scientologists. Okay. Detective Hippolyte then took the phone to have its data extracted and reported that it showed, I guess this is quoting from the report, Whitney reaches out to several friends over the prior month advising that she is in so much pain and wanting to end it all. She also texts her mom how sorry she is for all the trouble. From the month of April until her death, Mills researches ways to commit suicide, including lighting herself on fire and different ways to shoot herself. On the evening of the incident, Mills was researching how to set herself on fire and the proper way to shoot herself and not feel it. That was Googled approximately 20, 30 hours. So what is that? 10, that's 10:30 or 10:30 at night, which is right after she last spoke with her mother. Or is that 8:30? 24, 10, that's 8:30, right? 8:30 in the evening. The detective also referenced to a conversation in the phone. Oh, hold on, guys. My mouse is playing with me here. The detective also referenced to a conversation in the phone with Whitney telling a caretaker, Albertina, that she wanted to commit suicide. And the caretaker advised her to call the DFP. I called and spoke with Albertina, who filled in as a caregiver whenever Nieves was out of town. She confirmed that she took care of Mills, but appeared that she did not understand any of the question due to the language barrier. How do you take care of someone who speaks a language that you don't understand? That's why I'm saying this woman was under watch. These were not caregivers. Detective Hippolyte then contacted the Church of Scientology, which explained that DFP referred to Director of Processing. By the way, I do believe that the Church of Scientology that was being contacted was Tampa, not Flag. That's located in Clearwater. That's my understanding. Contacted the Church of Scientology. So the Church of Scientology explained that DFP means Director of Processing, and that an assist was a Scientology method of healing that was not physical. Well, no, an assist is physical. That's sort of the point of it. Most Scientology assists involve physical touching and laying on of hands. There are some that don't, but most do. And when the detective asked if Scientology would assist with a suicide, was told absolutely not. Can you imagine being a detective? You don't know anything about Scientology. You're hearing about someone who is suicidal, and they ask for an assist, and you think they're asking for help to commit suicide. I can totally see how that would happen. I can totally understand that. It's an amazing sort of coincidence that something that is relatively benign in Scientology and is at least an effort to genuinely help somebody is being interpreted as a detective by, did Scientology help this woman kill herself? It's wild. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Getting to the point. Depressed about her Lyme disease diagnosis and the pain she was feeling from the mass on her ovary, Whitney was apparently looking to a Scientology official for help. As an OT8 Scientologist, the last thing Whitney could do was to turn to actual mental health professionals for help. Scientology demonizes the mental health field and considers psychiatry to be the most evil force in the universe. Very true. Without the option of proper mental health care, Whitney turned instead to heartbreaking suicidal plans, researching how to set herself on fire and shoot herself. After she died, an autopsy was performed on May 14th. It found that the mass on her ovary was benign. She did not have cancer. That's Tony, left a message for Whitney's mom, hoping to ask her about the reference to the DFP. Why? You already know what the DFP means. Why do you want to ask her mom what a DFP is? Like, what the fuck is that? Hippolyte and about her daughter being going, what the fuck is this? This is fucking bullshit. The next time we tried to call, we received a notification that the number had been blocked. Yeah, I wonder why. The Clearwater Police Department noted that it had also given a copy of the investigative report to the Tampa Bay Times, and we are looking forward to what that publication can do on this story to give us more answers about what Whitney Mills faced and why she didn't get the treatment that might have lessened her physical and mental pain. Well, that's probably not going to happen. The Tampa Bay Times knew about this incident long before Tony Ortega did. They just chose not to report about it. So, yeah, look, for you Scientologists out there, the only reason you don't know about more OT8s committing suicide is because the information is suppressed and you don't know about it. Wendy Ederix was one of the top FSMs, field staff members in Los Angeles when I was in the Sea Org out there. OT8, an FSM, a field staff member, is someone who makes money by bringing other people into Scientology. And so not only was she one of Scientology's top recruiters, she'd done all of Scientology. Wendy Ederix, according to the information I have, committed suicide by shooting herself in the head in a motel in Los Angeles. And if that is the information I've received from multiple sources, if you're a Scientologist, you don't know that. If you're a Scientologist, that's the first time you're hearing this. If you knew Wendy Ederix personally, then perhaps you've heard some version of a shore story about what Scientology will literally create false stories to spread to Scientologists to cover up for their horrible true stories. And they're called shore stories. It's literally what they're called, shore stories. And look, if for some reason the information I was given about Wendy Ederix is incorrect, please contact me privately or in the comments and let me know what really happened. But I was told that Wendy Ederix committed suicide with a gun in a motel in Los Angeles. And Scientologists, I was told that when I was still in Scientology. Scientologists aren't really in the habit of making stories sound worse than they are. You're supposed to do the opposite. So if that's the information that made it to me, the chance of that having been just a fabrication, an exaggerated fabrication, the chances of that are quite low. So, Scientologists, just ask yourself the question, how can Scientology be completely incapable and refuse to actually handle people who are having mental health problems, and at the same time refuse to allow Scientologists to see mental health professionals? Like, forget medication. That's a completely separate conversation. You're not even allowed to talk to someone. You're not allowed. And if you were to even try to talk to a Scientologist, like just socially, like forget, professional counseling. If you were to try to sit down with another Scientologist and unload on them all of the, things you're depressed about or whatever, you'd end up being reported. Like they would write a report on you for, dramatizing your case or being banky or spreading in theta or whatever. And you'd probably just be assigned to do an ethics program and write OWs and do a sec check or conditions by dynamics or whatever, like all this bullshit. Like, and look, I know that there's plenty of ways that Scientologists rationalize all this shit, but, everything gets chalked up to, out tech, out ethics, PTS. It's like, give me a fucking break. At some point, you just have to confront reality and come to terms with the fact that Scientology has no fucking tools to help people who are having mental health problems. It just doesn't. And denying that such a thing even exists or saying it's all just due to vitamins and diet and sleep or get a change of environment or they must have had out tech or wrong items or they're out int or whatever, like, it's just fucking bullshit, guys. It's just fucking bullshit. And look, Stop wasting your fucking time and money doing this false bullshit bridge that didn't even fix L. Ron Hubbard's problems. Until the day L. Ron Hubbard died, he was trying to get rid of his body thetans. L. Ron Hubbard didn't even achieve the EP of OT7. There is no OT9 and 10. There is no upper bridge. That's why the goalposts keeps being moved on what needs to be attained in order to release OT9 and 10. L. Ron Hubbard didn't do OT9 and 10. He did. It doesn't exist, guys. Stop wasting your time. Stop wasting your money. Stop disconnecting from your family members. Stop letting your family members die because they don't have access to proper treatment for mental health problems. Like, it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. So, whereas I wouldn't have done a video on this otherwise, a journalist wouldn't have reported on this. It's not particularly newsworthy. In the Scientology world, at least, it is newsworthy. And as long as the information's being out there, I want as many Scientologists to know about it as possible. So, certainly not a feel-good video, to say the least. But, yeah. The information's out there. Scientologists need to know about it. And if you're a Scientologist in the Clearwater area or anywhere else really, but you're under the radar and you've heard the shore story of what they're saying actually happened to Whitney, contact me privately. I would love to hear what the bullshit story is that they've made up and are telling people, because the truth is just too horrible to let people know. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. I got more coming later this evening. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.